It's been 3 years since I've had a vegetable garden, and I'm hungry. One thing I haven't lost over those 3 years, though, is being a seed snob. And these are the 10 varieties of vegetables that I'm the most excited to be growing in my garden this year. The first is a cucumber called Itachi. And I gotta say, cucumbers are one of the ones where, after having explored all the different farm varieties that are available, varieties that, you know, are designed for high production, great flavor, just so many amazing cucumbers out there, I could never go back to like growing and eating a market more. Bleh. No way. My favorite varieties of cucumbers that I've found are Japanese varieties. So they're kind of similar in shape and flavor to an English cucumber, but I find they're a lot easier to grow and like they're better. Right? These Japanese cucumbers are so tasty. I know a lot of people who are like, I don't like cucumbers. My mom also finds, she says they give her indigestion. She said something about them being acidic, and she's found that the Japanese cucumbers, they still bother her, but they're not as bad as those more common like field type cucumbers. So this variety, I've grown this variety before. There are varieties that I want to keep exploring. My cucumbers at this point are like next level, but I'm still on the hunt for the world's best cucumber. I don't know how to say this word. Let me try here. Parthenocarpic. This is something too that this cucumber variety has that I really appreciate. So what that means is that it doesn't need insects to fertilize it. The cucumbers are often being grown in greenhouses, so they're developed to be that way so that they don't, basically they're self-fertile. But what this does, if you're growing it like that as a home gardener, sometimes fertilization can be a little inconsistent even when you're not in a tunnel. They really bring up production, and this variety of cucumber produces a lot. Number 2 is Shinkansen eggplant. And I haven't grown this variety before. I have grown Orient Express, and this is kind of being pitched as an improved variety of Orient Express. So these are Asian style eggplants. And one of the things that I really like about Asian style eggplants is I find that the plants produce more for me because Canada, Zone 5. It's just challenging for me to get enough heat and a long enough season to get really good eggplant production on those bigger kind of like Italian style eggplants. They're a little bit different what you can do with them. The Asian style eggplants are really good for stir frying. So like a lot of the eggplant recipes that I make, I'm cubing up eggplant anyways, and I'm stirring it into whatever I'm frying or baking or whatever. But I do like growing the European style ones too. I like having those big ones. You know, I cut like eggplant steaks for sandwiches and stuff like that. And I really like roasting them and making like baba ganoush and like other eggplant paste type things. I find that the Asian varieties, they keep their texture a lot more, which is nice for stir frying them. So they're a little different, but I'm really excited to try this variety because I know how good the production was for me on the Orient Express. And so if this one's going to be even more productive, I'm hungry for eggplant. It's one of my favorite things to eat. So, you know, and then I have all that heat in my garden. I'm really excited for some of the hot weather loving plants if I'm going to be able to get really good production on my vegetable garden, because it's just going to get so much heat into it. So I think it's going to be a good year for eggplants. And a big thank you to my sponsor, Magic Spoon. Magic Spoon creates cereal and treats that will appeal to the adult in you while thrilling the inner child at the same time. Magic Spoon fits a variety of diets. Its cereal has 13 to 14 grams of protein, 0 sugar, and 4 to 5 grams of net carbs in each serving, so you can feel good about what you're eating. Magic Spoon treats are crispy, crunchy, and airy without the chewy stickiness of a protein bar. with 11 to 12 grams of protein, 1 gram of sugar, and 1 to 2 grams of net carbs, so you can always get the fuel you need on the go. Magic Spoon is childhood reinvented. It's the same great taste that you remember, but upgraded with grown-up ingredients. I'm not a morning person, so it's a struggle for me to get up and get myself fed. But Magic Spoon and all its options make it easy for me to fuel myself, and the kids love it too. Use my code YCETG or click the link in the description to try Magic Spoon cereal or treats today and get $5 off. You can also find Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. And Magic Spoon is so confident in its product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee online. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. So click the link in the description to go to magicspoon.com/YCETG or scan the QR code on the screen for $5 off. Number 3 is one of my favorite greens, and this isn't something that you can buy. You can buy all the pieces, but this is a custom mustard mix that I'd been growing for years on the farm, trying to convince people, come on everyone, mustard's amazing. But over the years I tried a bunch of different mustard varieties till I got to the point that I was like, okay, I know which ones are my favorite, and then I blend them together and I make this mix. So then it looks really attractive. It's really tasty if you pick it and eat it as a salad for a baby green, but this mix is also good. You can let it grow a little bit bigger and use it as like a cooking green. I really, really love mustard greens, and it's something you can't really buy, partially because no one wants to buy it except for me. But yeah, so the pieces, okay, let me get my list because I found out the names. So the pieces in my mustard mix are Red Giant, which is a spicy green, really pretty, a really soft texture to it, like a really good, it's spicy, but it's a really good like salad green. And then Tokyo Bacana, which is super mild. This is kind of the reason why it's in the mix. It's in there to kind of tone down any of the spice. So not very spicy, but fleshier of a leaf. So it's kind of more similar to like a choy or like something cabbagey. Super, super soft, but juicy. And then Ms. America, so that's a Mizuno, and so beautiful. This is in there just for looks. this is frilly and this beautiful red color, just gorgeous, gorgeous. It's not as productive for amount of like leaves that it pumps out, but it's so pretty. I want it in the mix. And then it's a bit more bitter, so it is important in the mix for adding a little bit of a different flavor tone to it. And then Green Wave. So Green Wave looks kind of similar to the Tokyo Bacana, but it has some heat to it, right? So it's more fleshy than the Red Giant, which is more like a lettuce leaf, but it has that good mustard flavor to it. And then Tatsoi, so that's something that is mild and juicier, and it's a little bit smaller. It's in there to kind of like, it adds a different color. It's a darker green, but it also is in there to kind of mild down all the mustards, and it's quite a different shaped leaf, so it adds a different texture. And then I've also been throwing in Rosy Pak Choi as well. Yet again, fleshy, not spicy, quite mild. So it's kind of in there to give more of those red tones, and because it's beautiful. So those are all the elements in my mustard mix. I've been making this mustard mix for so long that like I have a container and I just keep dumping things into it. So it took me a while to figure out what it is, but I'm telling you guys, this mix is good. And for like balance on it, I usually go a little kind of like 2 to 1 on the Red Giant and the Tokyo Bacana, and then everything else is like 1 part, 1 part, 1 part. And then I just like, I seed it out, just direct seed, and it grows really easily. But it's a spring crop. This isn't something that you can grow in the summer. You should all go out and try it. And like, fair enough, that is like a list of a huge amount of different greens to get. So if you want to experiment with mustard greens, but you are not Serina level committed to them, making your own custom mix, I highly recommend just getting Red Giant. It's really tasty just on its own. Number 4 is Kohlrabi, and my favorite variety is Terek. This is something that I'd never actually eaten before we had the farm. I grew it for the first time because I needed more spring crops. There was only so many things that you can grow in the spring, and most of them are greens. So I was like, I need something to mix it up. And kohlrabi is something that grows quite well in the spring. You know, it's kind of, it grows above the ground, but it's kind of similar to like a root, right? It's kind of similar to a turnip or a rutabaga, kind of in its flavor, but it's of the cabbage family. So it kind of tastes like the best tasting broccoli stem you've ever had in your life. And I love them. They're one of my favorite things ever. I buy them regularly at the farmer's market because I enjoy them so much. They are quite sensitive to heat, which is the reason why I'm growing the Terek. I found that it's kind of like the most heat tolerant of all the varieties. They grow quite fast. If I remember correctly, I think it's kind of like a 45-day crop for this. So you kind of plant it out and then it grows. And then it's done for the year. Yet again, this is another spring crop. But I'm drooling just thinking. I'm so hungry, guys. All these delicious vegetables. I can't wait to have fresh veggies out of the garden again, and to like be able to get access to like all of these favorites. You know, that's one of the things that's the most exciting and most joyful about having your own vegetable garden. Not only do things just taste a million times better because you're getting them so fresh, you're getting them fresh in the way you can never get, not even from a local farm. You know, like when you pick things and then put them straight in your mouth, like the flavor is incredible, but you also get to grow exactly what you want. Being a gardener for 20 years, like this is the thing that draws me back again and again. It's that every year I find something better than the year before. You know, and it's just, it encourages and inspires me because it's like, oh, everything tastes so good already. Like, how good is it gonna taste 20 years from now when I've tried even more things and I've narrowed in my options even more? Like, I don't think I'm gonna be less of a seed snob in the future. It's just getting more snobby as the years go on. Number 5 is a shishito pepper called Mellow Star. And yet again, this is a variety, a type of thing that I'd never tried until we had the farm. It was, you know, kind of a little bit trendy, and so we grew it, and I love them. They're amazing. So a shishito pepper they're kind of like a stir-fry pepper. They're Japanese, I think, is like where they come from. But the idea is like they look really similar to like a lot of varieties of hot peppers. So it's, you know, feels weird to eat them, but they're mild. And the just classic like shishito pepper variety can occasionally have a few varieties that have like reverted and they've gone like hot. It's kind of like a 1 in 10 chance that they might be a little bit spicy. They're not like overwhelmingly spicy. They're mildly spicy, but you know, depending on how people are with heat. But the Mellow Star is a variety that's a little bit more adapted to not having those hots mixed in. And yeah, so the idea is like you pick it with the stem and everything, and you don't core it, you don't take rid of the stem, you don't get rid of the seeds, you just take the entire pepper and you grill it in a pan, you know, a little bit of oil, some salt and pepper, and they're incredible. They're really, really tasty. You know, I enjoy peppers. I like raw peppers too. I like, you know, fried peppers. I like peppers, but these are quite different from a sweet pepper, and they're really enjoyable to eat. They're something that, you know, like I enjoy as a side dish a couple times a week when I have it available, and so I'm excited to have them back again. We grew them for a couple years on the farm, and there was one year that they grew really, really well, and the plants just produced like crazy, and so we were eating them all the time, and it was a very happy year for me. And I really enjoy using them in hot sauces because I don't have to do a lot of processing with them. Often I will add sweet peppers into my hot sauces to bring the heat level down, kind of bring up the bulk, bring down the heat. And I really like the Mellow Star because they have those tones that are similar to the hot peppers, like the pepper flavor of it. But then like just no heat, and it's easy to use it, and I don't have to de-seed. I hate de-seeding peppers. Number 6 is a radish, specifically French breakfast. I love radishes. There's just something, I don't know. Like I've loved radishes from a kid, and I know that they're one of those veggies that's kind of like a love-hate thing. People either really like radishes or they're not interested in radishes at all. And growing up, my dad loves radishes too, so he always grew a few in a garden. And it was kind of like, oh, getting a fresh from the garden radish is just, really, really special. I also really enjoy pickling them, I've done fermented pickled radishes, or even a quick pickle on a radish. Those are tasty. My favorite variety is French breakfast. I find that it stays sweet, and it's not too affected by the hot springs that we get here. They still grow quite well. And then because it's long and skinny, you actually get a lot of radish per square footage. So yeah, it's been a lot of years since I've grown them. So yeah, I'm excited to have them back again. Number 7 is zucchini, and specifically Magda. So this is a Middle Eastern style zucchini. So the coloring on it is a lighter green. They look similar to the Mexican gray zucchinis, but they're not the same. I grew this type of zucchini for the first time when I got to the farm, but it was a variety that I couldn't find anywhere else other than from William Dam Seeds, and I can't remember the name of it off of the top of my head. But I know the flavor on them is just incredible. So I'm really excited that Johnny's has this Middle Eastern style zucchini. So it's different than normal zucchini because it's almost creamy. Right? It's not that the zucchini itself doesn't still hold its shape and hold its texture. It's not the texture is creamy, it's that the flavor is creamy. And I know that's that doesn't necessarily make sense. I also the plants are really productive too. So the shape of the zucchinis are a little bit different. They're shorter and fatter, but the plants produce really, really well. So even though maybe the zucchinis themselves are a little smaller than, a normal green zucchini would be, you still get a lot of production off of each plant. And the variety that I used to grow was also really early. So I'm excited to see if this Magda is an early producing one too. There was notes saying that it was. If I was gonna grow a green though, if you're a little worried about me talking about the best tasting creamy zucchinis ever, I highly recommend Dunja. That's a really great variety of green zucchini that I had a lot of luck with on the farm. Number 8 is a tomato, and it's Bigdena. So when the farm was growing vegetables, we grew tomatoes, and we experimented a lot with different types of tomatoes for what would be quite productive and do quite well for down at the market. Tomatoes are something that's a little challenging to make money on as a farmer because they take a lot of labor. People love tomatoes, and you can sell a lot of tomatoes, but you gotta sell them at a good enough price because it takes a lot of work before you bring those actual tomatoes down to the market. People really like heirloom tomatoes, and I do too. I'm definitely going to be growing a bunch of pink perkly tie-dye. That's an heirloom tomato that I absolutely adore, and I want that every single year for now until forever. But I gotta say that the more I experimented with heirloom tomatoes, the more they disappointed me. They were very common to split. The production on the plants was hit or miss. They didn't have great disease resistance, even though I didn't even have very much tomato disease. Here in the Okanagan, we don't get blight at all. So even though people were asking for the heirlooms, I was looking more to these kind of commercial varieties of tomatoes. And Bigdena is it's a beefsteak, and it's kind of sold saying like it's the most perfect tomato ever, and the seeds are crazy expensive. But they are. These tomatoes, they look insane. Like they come off the plant and they look like they must be fake, because they're the perfect size and they ripen perfectly evenly. Like there's no lighter color at the top. Just a perfect tomato. And one of the things that I found the more I ate heirloom tomatoes that I didn't like about them is when you pick an heirloom tomato, if you don't eat it right away, if you kind of like put it on your counter even for a day, they start to get kind of mealy. Like the texture of them, like they lose their firm texture really quickly. And I know that a lot of people don't like the firm texture of more like commercial style tomatoes, but I really like a firm tomato. And so the thing that I really like about Bigdena, and this is, yet again, this is one of the great things about growing stuff yourself. You will never be able to buy a tomato picked perfectly ripe off of the vine unless you like get it out of your garden, because tomatoes, when they're perfectly fully ripe, do not transport very well. Even these commercial varieties that are designed for firmness and designed to help for transporting. So when you grow these commercial varieties that are firm, but you ripen them to perfect ripeness, you get all the flavor of these heirloom varieties. You get like a lot of really rich and amazing tomato flavors, but you still get that like nice firm texture that I at least appreciate. So I'm excited. It's been a few years since I've been able to grow Bigdena, and a friend of mine, someone who watches the channel, gifted me some seeds that I didn't grow last year, so I have them like hoarded. I'm like, oh, my Bigdenas, I'm gonna get them again, and so I'm really excited to have them in the garden again. Number 9 is something I've never grown before. It's a pole bean, and the variety is Cobra. I got really interested in these as we moved away from growing vegetables on the farm. So I love beans. Like French beans are probably one of my favorite things to eat out of the garden. One of my first garden, that was like the thing that I grew the most of. And my kids too, like just raw, fresh beans. Amazing. I love them. Cooked, I love them. Like I really like those French style beans. But bush beans, they're kind of a pain in the butt, right? Like they're down on the ground, they're tricky to pick. I find sometimes that like I'm picking bush beans and like I rip the entire plant out. I'm just not that skilled at harvesting off of them. So I found out that there's pole bean varieties that kind of grow really similar to French style beans, but you can get it on like the big, huge pole bean plants. Any of the pole beans that I had grown previously had been purple peacock, which, they're beautiful, they're gorgeous, or scarlet runner beans. But the bean itself, it was kind of like, I'll eat it because I grew it and I need to eat it. I'm like, but I'm not like, I don't really want to eat it. What I want to eat is the green bush beans. So this variety is supposed to create a really high quality kind of French style bean. And so I'm excited to experiment with it and see if it can, because the pole beans, like they get really good production, and you can grow them up with height and everything. So yeah, I'm excited for the experiment. We will see. I'll tell you guys the truth. I'll tell you if they're good or not. If they're stringy and like hard beans inside, I'll go back to bush beans. But I'm hopeful. It sounds good. And then finally, number 10 is old classic beet Cylindra. I love beets. Beets are one of my favorite things to eat. When I was a kid, my grandma had a vegetable garden, and one of the things that she always grew was beets. But she didn't grow them because she wanted like the beet root. She grew them because she really liked beet greens. But so when I'd be over at her house and she'd cook up the beets, she'd cook the beetroot itself, but she was kind of like, I don't really like this. And then she'd have the beet greens for herself. And I was like, well, I like the beetroot. And I'm like, I don't want the beet greens. I want the beetroot. So you know, growing up, I was spoiled with some like really delicious homegrown beets, freshly picked from the garden. And like my mom's mom, she was an amazing cook. So, you know, even beets by her were like next level. So I definitely got spoiled on beets, and I've always loved them. I laugh about the variety of beet that I grow, right? Cylindra is like a very old variety. It's like, you can find it anywhere. It's not a challenging, it's seed to find. It's not fancy. It's not anything special, but it is my favorite. So they're like a longer, skinny variety. And I really like them partially because like you get a lot of beet, but it's also really easy to chop up to be able to cook, or to chop them into slices to be able to can. But the other thing that I like about it is I'm not growing it for the convenience. I really like the flavor. Not everyone likes a beet with the earthier flavors. A lot of beet varieties are kind of grown and marketed to be like more of a sweet, more of a mild flavor. But for me, like those kind of dirt tones to the beets is one of the things that I really enjoy about them. And so Cylindra has this like perfect balance of like a nice sweetness with like a good, rich, deep, earthy flavor to it that I really like. So I do some canning with it, but I'm mainly growing them for like fresh eating. And I really like it. And then plus, because they're long and skinny, you can get really good production when you're limited for space, which I will be with my new home garden. Well, I'm like drooling on myself now, just thinking about all these delicious vegetables that I'm gonna have in the garden this year. Obviously, the list of things that I'm going to be growing is a lot. Like, I'm going to be growing a lot more than just these varieties here. But you know, this I keep saying it over and over again, but this is the thing that I love the most about being able to be a home gardener. It's the being able to like grow exactly what you want. And so I'm really excited to get back into that type of garden again. It's really exciting, some of like the recipes that I'm going to be able to like cook again this coming year, and like to have a lot of this food, you know, like this list here, you know, kind of has stuff that's going to take me from like spring to fall. And yeah, like I said, I'm hungry. I think everything that I listed here you can find at Johnny's Seeds. So if you're looking for it, check them out and follow along to see just how these things grow.